everyone, and welcome to Museums Under the Spotlight. I'm Alina Dima, your host, and today we will open a door to a world of magic and mysteries, a world that's at the border between life and the afterlife. I will guide you through a breathtakingly impressive, sad, and yet peaceful monument built by a grieving father for his lost child. The Iulia Hasdeu Castle in Câmpina is a unique place in the Romanian landmark and talks about fatherly love, and also tells us a whispered story about the true human spirit and life after death. So join me into the unknown.
Esotericism, science, mystery, sorrow, hope. There are a lot of things to be said about this small medieval-style establishment, and just as many unanswered questions about the sad story behind its walls. We will try to find some answers and engage you in a story whose message is that everything is possible and it is all a matter of perspective.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, here we are at the Iulia Hasdeu Castle in the city of Câmpina in Romania. And today we are going to talk about an overwhelmingly sad and yet impressive story about the fatherly love and the relationship between father and daughter, even in the afterlife. And together with our host, Dragoș Stanciu, we are going to discover more of the symbolism of this castle and the story of the family that built the castle. Hello, and thank you so much for having us here today.
Welcome to Iulia Hasdeu's castle. Actually, this castle is a unique place. It is the only Spiritist temple. Why a Spiritist temple? Once upon a time, there was a scholar named Bogdan Hasdeu. This scholar gained universal fame through his works, through his hard labor. He was a member of the Romanian Academy. He was also a member of the Russian Academy, French Academy. He knew over 10 foreign languages. And he tried to create the Romanian dictionary, the encyclopedia of Romanian words, Magnum Etymologicum Romaniae. However, his grand work, his almost impossible work at the dictionary, stopped abruptly when his only child, Iulia, died.
I would like to know about Iulia's character, since we are talking about an impressive family with tremendous characteristics and also with an intelligence higher than the average. Tell me about Iulia.
Actually, Iulia Hasdeu was part of the fourth generation of scholars in the Hasdeu family. Iulia Hasdeu, the poet, Iulia Hasdeu, the writer, the fourth generation, a Romanian writer of French language. She already began to read and write and to learn German and French languages when she was only 4 years old. She graduated primary school when she was only 7. She graduated the Saint Saba Gymnasium when she was only 11, and she continued her studies in Paris at the Collège Sévigné. There she received her bachelor's degree, and at 16 years old she became the first Romanian female student admitted at Sorbonne, the greatest French university, the University of Sorbonne, where Iulia already prepared her doctoral thesis. Unfortunately, in Paris, Iulia became ill of a disease which had no cure at that time, tuberculosis. Her parents tried everything. The doctors were overwhelmed. They had no cure, they had no hope. Iulia, in the end, returned to her father. The scholar Hasdeu was the manager of the state archives in Bucharest. That's the place where Iulia died. Of course, to lose your only child is devastating. The pain is excruciating. However, one day when the scholar was working at his office at the archives, that's the place where he said that he was possessed by Iulia's spirit. And while in that state of trance, the scholar's hand took a piece of paper and wrote a message in French. I love you. I am happy. We will see each other again. Enough for now. And when the scholar woke up from that state of trance, he looked on that piece of paper. And although he was the one who wrote the message, the handwriting belonged to Iulia.
So this was the first moment
The first...
they actually
yes.
started to communicate.
Yes, yes.
One being on this dimension and the other one being in the afterlife.
Indeed. The first Spiritist message.
Hasdeu said that Iulia's spirit had been communicating with him in short bursts, giving him, among other important messages, the plans for the castle's design. And so, Hasdeu and his wife, Iulia, chose the city of Câmpina as the castle's location after visiting an old friend of the scholar. They fell in love with the town, bought a piece of land and started building the castle in Iulia's memory. Iulia guided her father from the beyond. Special attention was paid to what Iulia considered magic numbers, 3 and 7. This is why there are 3 towers, the one in the middle being the actual temple or church for prayer and meditation, and their staircases are made of 7 steps each.
Here we have the scholar and his wife.
And her name was also Iulia,
Yes.
right?
The 2 Iulias, Hasdeu and his 2 Iulias, the wife and the daughter. And he celebrated his 2 Iulias each year at the 2nd of July. So we have 2 Iulias, 2nd of July.
So there is a bit of numerology involved also, not
Everywhere,
only seance.
everywhere. The symbols, the numerology, yes. This Spiritist temple is built in such a way that it is obvious that someone else guided the builder of this castle. It is not random. You will not find any random elements. Everything is arranged in a certain way, a logical way, a binding of Christian and mystic elements that together they form a whole.
And they also tell a story. When it comes to symbols, I have noticed that the whole castle abounds with them. Tell me more about the symbolisms and the symbols inside the castle. And how did they transform and materialize into this reality?
Well, by practicing Spiritist sessions and receiving the plans for this castle and the different symbolic elements, Hasdeu managed to put together this place, to build this place with all its symbols. As a matter of fact, the first thing that a visitor will observe outside the castle, there are symbols. There is a very big door made of stone. On that door, the visitor can observe the family emblem with the family logo, Pro Fide et Patria, for belief and country. And Galileo Galilei's words, Eppur si muove. Inside of the door, the visitor will observe two guardian sphinxes. They guard the entrance. That's where the entrance in the castle used to be. Also, the visitor will observe two stone thrones with Julia's reincarnations, former lives.
How many were there when it comes to reincarnations? I know that this is a rather controversial subject, a rather controversial matter when it comes to karma, reincarnation, past lives,
the Christian
multiple
belief
lives.
does not abide, does not accept the presence of former lives.
Exactly. But during the communication between father and daughter, he received such information and such messages regarding Julia's experiences. Do we know how many were there?
On the thrones, there are 7 former reincarnations of Julia. Actually, there is a stage with each reincarnation. The soul goes in a higher state of evolution. Julia being the last reincarnation, it means that the soul has reached its apex point of evolution on this earth.
The first incarnation was Agnodice from ancient Greece. Then came Hypatia from Egypt, Juana Veranes from Spain, Beatrice Portinari, who was believed to be Dante's inspiration for La Divina Commedia. After them comes Elizabeth Tudor, the former Queen of England, and the last incarnation prior to Julia was Charlotte Corday, the woman who killed Marat, one of the leaders of the French Revolution.
All the incarnations were with feminine energy, no male energy involved, and yet women with incredible power and strength, and they were truly unique. Exactly. Just as Julia was in this existence. And even from beyond, she was able to guide her father into doing impressive things, because up until then, up until that moment, at least in Romania, no one knew anything about spiritualism or spiritist sessions and activities.
Yes, in this field of science, well, Hasdeu considered Spiritism as a science. He was an opener of ways. And he wrote a book called Sic Cogito. That's Latin for what I think. In that book, Sic Cogito, the writer Hasdeu, the scholar Hasdeu, wrote about Spiritism, how to practice Spiritism.
Julia's castle and the temple dedicated to her spirit is a vivid representation of the immortality of the human soul, and we can talk about the love above and beyond between father and daughter and their connection. We mentioned before the fact that the main entrance of the castle is in itself a work of art. And now in the interior, we face the possibility of finding infinity. How do we find infinity in the castle?
I mentioned earlier a big stone door that was the entrance in the temple. That stone door symbolically also represents the passing between 2 dimensions, the outside world, the profane world, and the inside world, this church, this temple, the sacred world. So here we are at the main entrance in the temple, and anyone who entered this temple passed between these parallel mirrors. The person's image is multiplied theoretically at the infinitely. God is infinite. So by passing between these parallel mirrors, a person becomes one with God. A person passes from the profane outside to the sacred inside. In the temple, there is a central pillar that, together with two metallic stairs and with a metallic circle, all together they form the representation of the Holy Grail. The Holy Grail used at the Holy Supper. In the upper part of this temple, on the walls, we have a painting, the representation of the labyrinth of the universe with stars and planets. However, this is not the original painting. The original was the blue sky with angels and stars and God's eye in the middle. After the 1977 earthquake in Romania, the authorities decided not to remake the original painting. They replaced it with this one. However, we have pictures, photographs of the original. So the blue sky will once again be painted here, as Hasdeu wanted, as Iulia wanted. In this Spiritist temple, Hasdeu managed to communicate with Iulia's spirit. And here we have a dilemma.
Exactly.
You will answer that dilemma. You have to think about it.
What would make more sense? And what could be beneficent or actually maleficent when it comes to energy?
It's all up to us to decide. Everybody believes what they want.
Iulia was a remarkably beautiful young lady. Unfortunately, her fate wasn't necessarily the happiest of all, since she died at a young age. But apart from that, she truly was a prodigy, and she was the proud daughter of her father, also a scholar, a writer, and a poet. Tell me more about Iulia's personality.
Actually, Iulia was Hasdeu's life. Everything that Hasdeu dreamt of, everything he wanted, his ideal, his feminine ideal, was in Iulia. The day Iulia died, everything collapsed for the scientist.
So we could say that he died with her also.
Yes. As a matter of fact, Hasdeu himself admitted that the day Iulia died, he also died, had no more reason to live. Here we see Iulia in the library, and behind Iulia we see 3 books.
Exactly.
Those books were published after Iulia died. Her works of literature, her works of poetry.
So besides being a writer, what else did Iulia do during her life?
She was a singer as well. She knew how to play the piano. We have in this castle Iulia's piano, brought from Paris. She knew how to paint. She wrote poetry. Who knows what Iulia would have achieved if she lived longer, if she had lived longer.
Unfortunately, we can never know, but even from beyond, she was able to communicate, to influence our reality.
Create
exactly.
this Spiritist temple.
The castle itself is
a representation of her work,
Yes.
even from the afterlife.
Hasdeu was the tool. The creator was Iulia.
Let's move on
Yes.
and see who else we have here.
We have the scholar Hasdeu, a painting done by Nicolae Grigorescu, the greatest Romanian painter.
So
Actually-
we are now in front of Iulia's father.
Yes. This painting managed to survive 2 world wars.
You mentioned before the fact that Iulia loved music also. She was a singer and she played the piano. I believe that this might actually be the piano that she played on.
Yes, this is Iulia's pianine. Yes.
During her lifetime, she played the piano, but I am curious to know if even from beyond she played the piano also. If in any case, when we are talking about paranormal activities, so to say, in the castle, could she still be heard at some point?
I heard these legends. As a matter of fact, 2 years ago, there was a group of children. That group visited this castle, and while they were guided, they claim that Iulia's spirit played this piano. Of course, they were scared. They ran away. They ran outside. But later, their teacher, came back and admitted in writing that he heard this piano sing on its own. Which makes us wonder, is Iulia's spirit around this place? Was it only an accident? Who knows?
I don't think that we could talk about the castle being haunted, because Iulia was such a positive human being, so we're not talking about this kind of activity, but maybe part of her energy
There are no ghosts
still here.
There are no ghosts here. Maybe Iulia indeed played this piano from beyond. Anything is possible. I leave that up to you to decide.
Or maybe she liked her visitors so much, so she just wanted
Why
to
not? Why not? Yes.
play a
yes.
little music for them, just like that.
Yes. Very old piano. It doesn't sing very nice anymore, but it's good to have it here.
And I cannot play the piano, so it would really be lousy of me to do that. But it's a beautiful piece of work.
Castle, there is a special room dedicated entirely to Iulia's memory, comprising some of the objects that she was fond of, like her desk brought back from Paris. On the desk, one can observe a Spiritist anthem transmitted to Hasdeu by Iulia from beyond, with a sad violin melody. The visitor's attention is captured also by Iulia's grave statue from her grave at Bellu Cemetery in Bucharest, her childhood doll received as a gift from her father, and several mathematics notebooks and poetry manuscripts. The room is painted with white kala, a flower symbolizing the early death.
I would like to visit one of the most important rooms in the castle, the Spiritist room, where the Spiritist activities were held and where father and daughter were reunited once again, one in this dimension and the other talking from above, from beyond.
Here we
Life.
are in the Spiritist room. It is a small room, usually at these Spiritist seances. There were only 4 or 5 people, and one of them was the medium. the medium was in a state of trance. He was possessed by the spirit.
So the spirit was communicating through a living human being.
The living human being was the tool. Only a tool. Here we have a sample of a Spiritist manuscript. That ugly handwriting belongs to the medium, because as I said, the medium wrote the message as if he was electrocuted. Later, Hasdeu came and
rewrote everything
in a more intelligible text. Hasdeu tried and maybe succeeded in breaking the barriers between this dimension and the beyond. In this room, as a matter of fact, we have a hole in this wall.
Yes, that's a very curious fact.
Some say that hole was used for the spirit to come into this room. Well, actually, it has a more simple reason. All the Spiritist sessions took place in night time, in darkness, and light entered only through that hole. That's the purpose of that hole.
Is there any message that could be considered as being the most important and self-explanatory among all these messages?
The most important Spiritist messages were those concerning the plans for this castle. In one of the Spiritist manuscripts, Hasdeu himself wrote that he received these plans from Iulia's spirit. It was Hasdeu's confession.
We believe or not, the human spirit is part of the great mysteries of the universe, and each life matters, as we've all received a divine purpose and a divine mission here on Earth. It's up to us to discover how we can serve in order to bring peace and beauty in this world. Iulia's story can be an inspiration for everyone to seek further, to reach new territories in knowledge and evolution.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, I really hope that you have enjoyed this magnificent lesson about love and the magic, infinite dimensions of life in all things seen and unseen. The Iulia Hasdeu Castle is a one-of-a-kind example that we are all travelers through time and space, and life always has a greater meaning. Until next time, remember to make your life a beautiful story.